between 1915 and 1926, George Gershwin recorded 141 piano rolls. My Gershwin Rollography, based in the previous work of the late collector Michael Montgomery, is available on Academia and documents extensive details about each roll known to have been recorded. However, only about a third of the Gershwin rolls listed in the Rollography are now either commercially or academically available to modern listeners outside the piano roll community. And even there, only you know how it is. Okay, my intention today is first to document which Gershwin rolls are currently available to the non-specialist music audience, and second, to open discussion regarding a possible path for releasing a larger number of little-known Gershwin piano rolls that surely would be of broad public interest. My intention today, my informal tabulation of those currently available begins with the titles issued commercially on CD by Nonesuch, that numbers 27, and Yamaha 39 on Disklavier floppy disk in 1993-95. While the Yamaha releases total 39 selections, 19 of Yamaha's titles overlapped with those released by Nonesuch. Therefore, the actual total between them is 46 separate tracks out of 141. Keep that number in mind. The Nonesuch CDs are still available, I can assure you, but I've not been able to track the availability of the Yamaha piano soft discs that were sold during the 1990s. In any event, the Yamaha piano soft discs, spin-offs of the Nonesuch effort, were only playable on the Disklavier of the 1990s era. More recently, the Australian Condon Collection commercially released a CD's worth of a group of Gershwin's duo-art and Welty reproducing rolls. Only 10 titles out of a total of 20 on the Condon Collection CD do not overlap with what was released by Nonesuch or Yamaha in the 1990s. Thus, out of Gershwin's 141 known piano rolls, the total number currently available appears to be only 57 selections at best. However, while I was on a grant from the United States National Endowment for the Humanities in 1989 to 1990, I had personally acquired in 1989 MIDI formatted data harvested from optical scans of 117 Gershwin piano rolls. The purpose of my grant, entitled, quote, George Gershwin and the Novelty Ragtime Style, unquote, was in part awarded to support study of Gershwin's work in the piano roll idiom. The 117 MIDI scans I acquired in 1989 were capable of playback on the Yamaha Disklavier. The confluence of optical piano roll scanning, the Disklavier, which was then fairly new on the market, and my Gershwin research and the 1990s altogether coincided, and I was approached to create a commercial product for Nonesuch Records, namely a new recording of Gershwin's piano rolls. My work resulted with Nonesuch releasing a 2 CD set that featured, as I said, 27 Gershwin piano roll recordings, plus Gershwin's rendition of Rhapsody in Blue and Frank Milne's duo-art arrangement of An American Paris. I oversaw all aspects of the project, but most significantly served as pianolist for those of Gershwin's 88 note rolls that required expression for a musicalized performance. I note here that I've loaded just this week to academia.edu a preliminary report that includes additional details beyond what I'm sharing today regarding my 1989-95 Gershwin piano roll work with Nonesuch and Yamaha. It's important to note that while toward the end of his roll career, Gershwin began to record for the reproducing piano duo art and Welty. The majority of his piano rolls, however, are 88-note rolls that require expressive interpretation facilitated by the person foot pumping, that is to say, the pianolist. In other words, key. Gershwin's 88-note rolls are the core items he generated within the piano roll oeuvre. The roll companies frequently inscribed expression lines on the rolls, usually in blue, a wavy line or dotted line, ranging from loud to soft, meant to help the pianolist create an expressive performance, but they were elective. It wasn't like in granite. In the case of Gershwin's Metro art rolls, an additional line, usually red, was inscribed to guide tempo modification. For reasons both practical and economic, a unique method was devised for adding expression to Gershwin's 88-note rolls. My pianolized renditions were created using a 1918 Aeolian Vorsetzer that I purchased and had restored at my own expense. This machine, an iteration of the more familiar inner player-player piano. I know I'm speaking to many people who know all this stuff, but there are people here that don't. When foot pumped, causes the wood and metal fingers to play a normal piano, a straight piano, as triggered by the holes cut in a continuously unfurling paper piano roll traveling over a tracker bar. The Vorsetzer was positioned over the 88 piano keys of a small 48-inch Disklavier upright loaned to me by Yamaha. The Disklavier is an acoustic piano fitted with machinery that can record and store for later playback the keystrokes, note timings, and note velocities executed by human hands in real time. The Vorsetzer thus functioned loosely as the stand-in for a human's 10 fingers, and the pianolist, i.e. me, by manipulating various levers and varied foot pumping, could modify both note velocities and note timing in real time to create an expressive, non-mechanical performance. You know, these rolls were all quantized pretty much, by the way. So you had to spread them out. The Gershwin rolls used in the Nonesuch project were loaned from the collection of the late Mike Montgomery, who then held the largest number of original Gershwin rolls. Recuts were made of those which required my pianolizing, since the danger of damage to the originals in repetition practice, which is what you do if you are learning how to pianolize a composition. It's like learning how to play a piece of music, but you know, the notes and rhythms are already in place. Okay, don't want to lose my place here either. The danger of damage to the originals was too great. These recuts were paid for by me and were not a property of either Nonesuch or of Yamaha. My roll performance data so obtained was stored on floppy disks and subsequently taken by me to Yamaha's headquarters in Buena Park, California. There I collaborated with then Disklavier editor Jeff Volkerts. Together we needed to edit my pianolized or expressed roll renditions previously developed using the small 48-inch Disklavier upright so that they would work optimally for the 9-foot Disklavier piano that was going to be the recording piano. Now, if you know anything about this, can you imagine what that entailed? You playing a piece into a 49-inch upright and then having to scale it up and do different things to get it to play on a 9-foot grand. there was a lot of editing that went on there. Once editing was completed at Wayne Park, the 9-foot Disklavier was moved to a venue favored by Arthur Rubinstein, the Academy of Arts and Letters in New York City, where a recording was made from the Disklavier Grand's playback by the late Max Wilcox, who, by the way, was Rubinstein's audio engineer, and he used standard microphone capture. In addition to my pianolized renditions, duo art, and welty emulations of a selection of Gershwin's reproducing rolls were also crafted for the 9-foot Disklavier and recorded by Wilcox in similar manner. These rolls contained dynamic inflections that reproducing pianos were capable of executing automatically. And that's a whole issue. We can always get into it, but I want to go on. Transferring the complex performance data from Gershwin's 1920s paper reproducing rolls to the 1990s digital realm was achieved via the pioneering work of the late Richard Tonneson and Richard Brandl. Gershwin's reproducing rolls, which, in addition to the note-on, note-off data, contained dynamic coding, were scanned and transferred to the MIDI format, which was then pretty new. Once in this format, Richard Brandl had developed a program for emulating the varied note velocities that were triggered by additional perforations punched into the reproducing rolls. These emulations were also playable on the 9-foot Disklavier. Now, the heart of this. In negotiating my Nonesuch contract, I had specified that 68 Gershwin roll selections be recorded due to their historic importance and musical value. But how was I able to determine from among Gershwin's over 100 rolls that those particular ones merited release? Answer: before the commencement of my Nonesuch involvement, I was able to study over 100 Gershwin rolls due to the pioneering optical piano roll scanner, which had just become available in 1989 as I was on that grant. This fledgling optical scanner, of course, things have improved since then, but this was one of the beginning things, which can convert straightforward note-on, note-off information cut into the paper rolls to digital information, was devised by the late David Quinlan. Michael Montgomery's rolls were loaned to a small New Jersey company called Micro W, for whom Quinlan worked, and they were scanned. At the time, I had no plan to produce a commercial product. My goal was strictly academic, and it was essential to have easy access to Mike Montgomery's full collection in digitized form. Dealing with his over 100 valuable and fragile original Gershwin rolls was a non-starter. And there's always this statement, they're not fragile, excuse me. Some can be very damaged. And I have hundreds of these in my own collection from other people that are damaged, and you have to repair them. So you don't want to use originals, somebody else's originals. You have to start with something fresh. Okay. While Quinlan's optical scanning of Montgomery's 117 Gershwin rolls was essential for my study, the Quinlan scans were not refined, and certainly in the case of the non-expression rolls were, of course, quantized note-on, note-off data with no dynamic inflection. Quinlan scans were unquestionably foundational for my work, but they could never have been used for a CD recording project of the sound or artistic quality projected by Nonesuch. I retain the 117 Quinlan scans of Gershwin's rolls from Montgomery's collection. It's possible Micro W marketed these scans through QRS during the 1990s, 4 times. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure whether that actually happened. In any case, it wasn't my concern at the time. But coming back to Quinlan scans, even if they were marketed, and useful to me for my academic analysis, they would present problems in playback and some problems of accuracy. So we can move beyond that era now. Returning to the Nonesuch project. Well, the company indeed recorded all 68 selections that I selected, and by the way, I insisted this be part of the contract. They issued only the 27 we had worked over assiduously, despite my request made in recent years that they release the remaining 41. Therefore, fast forward to 2017, when I decided to re-record the unreleased 41 Gershwin piano rolls. Seen behind me, if you can see that, you will see them hopefully. I lined them up like little soldiers. I also purchased, in the interim, several other of Gershwin's originals that had surfaced since the 1990s. However, I discovered in 2017 that a number of my original Nonesuch project recuts stored in my New York studio had been stolen from me. But thanks to the assistance of Ed Gaida, Julian, thank you, Julia Dyer, Tim Baxter, and the late Frank Himsel, the stolen titles were replaced. Also to be thanked is Richard Smith, owner of the Piano Exchange, who currently has a significant collection of original Gershwin piano rolls. Keep that in mind. From his originals, Rick permitted me to trace over my replacement recuts. The original recuts I had, Janet Tonneson had actually traced those expression lines, but my replacements had to have that too, onto my new recuts. Without the assistance of these people, thank you very much, very, very much, I could not have been able to proceed in 2018. I also decided to use the original type of role-playing instrument that Gershwin himself would have been familiar with and acquired a 1912 Bush & Lane 88-note player piano. You see behind me, fully restored by Paul Manganaro. It's wonderful. During the summer of 2018, I pianolized over 50 never-released Gershwin rolls on the Bush & Lane in a resonant acoustic environment rented by me using a professional audio engineer, Dr. Whitney Slayton, who teaches now at Bard. However, due to the expense of taking the recordings done in the summer of 2018 and editing them, you have to CD level audio, plus, and this is significant to me, the uncertain nature of either the manner or indeed the feasibility of any commercial release of such a large amount of music, I allowed the project to lie fallow and subsequently pursued many other projects, not in the field of piano rolls, by the way, as we know. Harmoniums, reed organs, antique pianos, etc. Summary. The combined total of Gershwin roll performances, MIDI scans, audio recordings, and paper piano rolls currently in my possession is probably 118 out of a total of the 141. These historic piano rolls, and they're now sitting here in raw format, their original format, as paper rolls. My audio recordings I made in summer of 2018, and of course Quinlan scans, which are usable for certain things, are awaiting a proper method of distribution. In closing, in terms of my recent piano roll work, acquiring the Bush & Lane player felicitously coincided with the arrival of YouTube. in a continuance of the spirit of my original 1989-90 National Endowment grant, I've been able to pianolize, video record, and load onto the YouTube platform hundreds of important piano roll selections that have both historic and outstanding musical value by composers and pianists of the Gershwin era, that was what the grant was about, greatly. This has been an outcome for my work that I never saw coming in the 1990s. Before opening presentation to discussion, do I have time to pianolize one roll? Yeah. Okay, here's I'm going to play some of the originals I found, and these are unreleased. Nobody's done them. And of course, why? Because it takes a pianolist, and this has always been a problem. How do you deal with this type of material? Well, I can deal with it. Yeah?
Quick question. Do you have original sound on your Zoom?
It says original sound for musicians.
And does it say on next to that?
On, yes.
Yes, great.
Okay, but I'm currently recording, of course, for my own purposes, my presentation, but I might pianolize these at a later time with my good equipment and put it up. But just for the fun of it, this is what it is, and hopefully you'll see it. I don't know how the camera's going to catch it, but hopefully you'll see what I do. And this roll is to prove that it is an original. It is an original. It's called I Wonder Why. It's a tune by Jerome Kern that came out of a musical review of 1917 called, what was it called? Love of Mike. And Gershwin was then, I guess he was 18 years old. He was a rehearsal pianist. And he was making tons of piano rolls, making actually fairly good money doing that for at least that period of his life. And it's an 88-note roll that has, it's a metro art roll. It does have some of those little snake bites for accentuation, and it has the blue expression line, it has the red tempo line, and the speed is 65, and it works really well at 65.